I want you to stop whatever you're doing right now and ask yourself one honest question. Did you actually maximize your garden this year? Or did you plant a few things in spring, watch a couple struggle through the cold, and then quietly tell yourself, maybe next year will be better? Because if that sounds familiar, and I know for a lot of you it does, then what I'm about to tell you is going to feel like someone just handed you a second chance. Here's something that shocked me the first time I discovered it. The gardeners who consistently pull the biggest harvests, the ones with overflowing raised beds, the ones posting those ridiculous abundance photos online, most of them aren't doing anything special in March or April. Their secret weapon is June. June is when the soil is finally warm enough to wake seeds up fast. June is when the growing conditions align perfectly for a very specific group of crops. And June, right now this very month, is when the gardeners who know this are making moves that everyone else won't understand. Until harvest time, there are 15 seeds and crops that are practically begging to go into the ground this month. And if you skip this video and miss this window, that's another full year of leaving food, money, and potential sitting in the dirt. So let's not do that. Let's get into it. Welcome to Evergreen Garden Life. If this is your first time here, please like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment right now telling me what time you're watching this. I read every single one. Now before we get into the list, I need to make sure you understand something fundamental. Something that completely changes the way you look at June planting. And that thing is soil temperature. Most gardeners think about the weather outside. They check if it's warm enough, they look at the air temperature, and they make their planting decisions based on that. But experienced growers, the ones who actually get consistent results year after year, they're not just checking the air. They're checking what's happening underneath their feet. Soil temperature is the hidden factor that determines whether your seeds germinate fast and strong, or whether they just sit there and rot. And in June, across most of America, the United Kingdom, and a large part of Europe, soil temperatures have finally climbed into that sweet spot that most warm season crops absolutely love. We're talking about soil that's sitting comfortably between 65 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not just adequate. That's ideal. When seeds hit warm soil, something remarkable happens. Germination speeds up dramatically. Root systems establish faster. The plant doesn't have to fight against cold, compacted, slow earth. It just goes. And that's exactly why certain crops planted in June will outperform the same crops planted in April by a surprisingly wide margin. So when someone tells you June is too late, what they're really telling you is they don't understand soil temperature. And now that you do, you're already ahead of most gardeners watching this. Now let's get into the crops. I've split these into two groups: crops you direct sow straight into the ground, and crops you plant out as transplants. Both groups are absolutely viable in June, and together they give you a garden that's stacked with variety and timed for maximum yield. Starting with the direct sow crops. These are seeds you push straight into warm June soil with no indoor starting required. Number 1, bush beans. Bush beans are one of the most rewarding June crops you can grow, and they're dramatically underused this time of year. Here's what makes them special in June. Warm soil triggers rapid germination, and some varieties will give you a harvestable crop in as little as 35 days. That's just over a month from seed to table. In June, the soil is doing all the heavy lifting for you. You're not fighting cold, you're not babying seedlings, you're just sowing and watching them take off. The key with bush beans is spacing. Give them good air circulation, keep the rows tidy, and keep harvesting regularly because the more you pick, the more the plant produces. Number 2, pole beans. Pole beans are the vertical version of the same story. They climb, they produce abundantly, and they love June heat. The big advantage of planting pole beans now is that they'll keep producing well into late summer and early fall, long after a lot of your other crops have wound down. Set up your trellis or your bamboo canes before you sow, and then just direct sow the seeds at the base. June soil temperature does the rest. Number 3, cucumbers. Cucumbers are one of the classic June direct sow crops, and for good reason. They are fast, they are productive, and they genuinely prefer warm soil over cold. Cucumber seeds sown in cold spring soil tend to rot or germinate poorly. But in June, they pop up quickly, establish fast, and start climbing within weeks. Whether you're growing vine varieties on a trellis or bush varieties in containers, June is their moment. Expect fruits within 50 to 65 days depending on your variety. Number 4. Summer squash and zucchini. If you want to feel like a successful gardener quickly, plant zucchini in June. These plants grow with an almost aggressive energy in warm conditions. Sow 2 or 3 seeds per hole, thin to the strongest one, and give it space, because it will need it. One healthy zucchini plant can produce more than you expect. And in June the growing conditions push them into overdrive almost immediately. Number 5. Sweet corn. Sweet corn is one of the most satisfying crops any gardener can grow. And June is actually a great time to get it in the ground across most of the United States and in the warmer parts of Europe. The key to sweet corn in June is sowing in blocks rather than rows. Corn is wind-pollinated, so you need that density for good cob development. And here's a strategy most gardeners miss. Stagger your sowings every 2 weeks throughout June. That way, instead of getting all your corn at once in a single overwhelming harvest, you get a steady stream of fresh cobs across multiple weeks. Number 6. Beets. Beets are a dual-purpose crop that most people plant too early and in the wrong conditions. The reality is beets planted in June, particularly in the first half of the month, have excellent germination rates in warm soil, and will be ready for a late summer harvest. What makes beets especially valuable is that you get 2 crops in one. The roots obviously, but also the greens, which are nutritious and delicious. If you're in a particularly hot climate, give your beets a bit of afternoon shade to prevent bolting. Number 7. Carrots. Carrots in June might surprise some of you, but there's actually a strategic advantage to a June sowing that rarely gets talked about. When you sow carrots later in the season, you often encounter significantly less pest pressure from carrot fly, one of the most damaging carrot pests, because the second generation of carrot fly is still in its early stages during a June sowing window. That means your June carrots often come out cleaner and less damaged than carrots sown in the high-risk spring window. Sow directly into loose, well-drained soil, water consistently, and expect roots ready to pull in late summer. Number 8. Radishes. Radishes are the fastest crop on this entire list. Some varieties go from seed to harvest in as little as 22 to 25 days. In June, you can tuck radish seeds into any gap in your garden, between slower-growing crops along the edges of beds in containers, and they'll be ready before those other crops even think about producing. They're also incredibly useful as companion plants, helping to loosen soil and deter certain pests from more vulnerable neighboring crops. Number 9. Okra. Okra is a crop that thrives in heat and is perfectly suited to a June planting, particularly across the American South and in warmer European climates. It needs soil temperatures of at least 65 degrees Fahrenheit to germinate properly, which is exactly why planting it before June in many regions leads to disappointment. Sow directly, thin to about 12 to 18 inches apart, and give it full sun. Okra produces prolifically once it gets going, and regular harvesting keeps the plant in active production mode. Number 10. Southern peas, also known as black-eyed peas. Southern peas are one of the most heat-tolerant legumes you can grow, and they are extraordinarily well-suited to June planting across America's warmer zones. They fix nitrogen in your soil as they grow, which means they're actually improving your garden while they feed you. They're drought-tolerant, low-maintenance, and they produce a reliable, nutritious crop that most gardeners in the northern states and in the UK have never even tried growing. If you're in a warm climate and you've never grown southern peas, June is the month to start. And this is exactly the kind of information that makes the difference between a garden that just survives and one that absolutely thrives. If you haven't subscribed yet, I genuinely need you to think about this. Every week on this channel we're sharing research-backed, practical gardening knowledge that you simply will not find laid out this clearly anywhere else. When you leave without subscribing, you're essentially walking away from your own harvest. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell right now. Your future garden will thank you. Now let's move into the transplant crops. The 5 crops you're planting out as young seedlings or starts in June rather than direct sowing from seed. Number 11. Tomatoes. Yes, tomatoes. I know what some of you are thinking. Isn't it too late? And the honest answer is, it depends, but for many regions of America and the UK, early to mid-June is still within the viable window for getting tomato transplants in the ground. The critical thing here is to buy a healthy, well-established start from your local nursery, rather than trying to grow from seed at this point. Choose a vining variety that produces smaller fruits, like a cherry or a Juliet-style tomato, because these mature faster than large beefsteak varieties. Plant it against a sturdy trellis, give it consistent water and feeding, and you can realistically expect fruits from late July right through to your first frost. Number 12. Peppers. Peppers are heat lovers through and through, and if you're in a warm climate across America or Southern Europe, June transplants are completely viable. Like tomatoes, by a strong, healthy start rather than attempting seed germination at this stage. Peppers need consistent warmth, full sun, and consistent moisture. Not waterlogged soil, but never letting them fully dry out either. Once they get established in June's warm conditions, they grow steadily and produce well into autumn. Number 13. Sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are planted differently from most crops. You're not planting a seed or a seedling. You're planting what's called a slip, which is essentially a rooted cutting taken from a mature sweet potato. June is an ideal time to get sweet potato slips in the ground across most of the United States because they need a long, warm growing season of around 90 to 120 days. And a June planting gives them exactly that before the first autumn frosts arrive. They're vigorous, they spread generously across the ground, and they produce an absolutely satisfying harvest of nutritious roots. Number 14. Pumpkins. If you want pumpkins ready for autumn, whether for cooking, for decoration, or for that classic harvest season feeling, then June is your planting deadline. Pumpkins need roughly 75 to 100 days to reach maturity depending on the variety, which means a June planting lands you right at a September or October harvest. That timing is not an accident, it's a strategy. Plant in rich, well-amended soil, give them room to sprawl, and keep the soil consistently moist during establishment. The vines will take over, and the fruits will reward you right on schedule. Number 15. Basil. Basil closes out this list, and don't underestimate it just because it's an herb. Basil is one of the most productive, versatile, and rewarding plants you can have in a summer garden. It loves heat. It thrives in June conditions. And it serves double duty. Not only does it give you an endless supply of fresh leaves for cooking, but it also acts as a powerful companion plant for tomatoes, repelling aphids and certain other pests that would otherwise damage your crop. If you haven't already sown basil from seed, buy a healthy plant from your nursery in June and start harvesting immediately. Pinch the growing tips regularly to keep it bushy and prevent it from bolting too quickly. Now here's where everything gets even more powerful. And this is the part of the video that I really want you to pay close attention to, because this is what separates gardeners who have a good season from gardeners who have an extraordinary one. It's called succession sowing, and it is the single most underused strategy in home gardening. The idea is simple, but the impact is massive. Instead of planting all of your beans, cucumbers, radishes, carrots, and corn in one go, you stagger your plantings across 2 to 3 week intervals throughout June. What this does is spread your harvest out over a much longer period rather than hitting you with everything at once. Because here's the honest truth about gardening that most people don't want to admit. A massive glut of zucchini or beans all arriving in the same week is almost as frustrating as growing nothing at all. You can't eat it fast enough, you're giving bags of it to neighbors who don't really want it either, and then it's gone. But when you succession sow, when you plant a row of beans this week, another row in 2 weeks, and another row 2 weeks after that, you create a continuous, rolling harvest that keeps your kitchen stocked with fresh produce week after week, all the way into early autumn. Apply this strategy specifically to your beans, cucumbers, radishes, carrots, and sweet corn from this list, and you will be absolutely amazed at how different your garden feels. It stops being a sprint and starts being a reliable, ongoing source of food. The last thing I want to address is something that makes a real difference depending on where you live. And that's your USDA hardiness zone if you're in America, or your regional climate zone if you're in the UK or Europe. Not all of these 15 crops will work in every single location in June. If you're gardening in the northern states, in Scotland, or in cooler parts of northern Europe, your June soil temperatures may be slightly lower than in the American South, California, or southern England. That doesn't mean you can't plant in June. It means you need to be smart about which crops you prioritize. For cooler zones, lean heavily into your beans, beets, carrots, radishes, and peas. These crops are more forgiving of slightly lower soil temperatures, and will still perform well in a June sowing window. 4 warmer zones across the American South, the Southwest, Southern Europe, and the warmer parts of the UK. Every single crop on this list is viable and the conditions are genuinely ideal. The hotter your June, the more your cucumbers, okra, sweet potatoes, southern peas, and corn will absolutely explode with growth. The bottom line is this: June is not the end of your planting season. It never was. It is a powerful, strategic, and often underestimated window that gives specific crops the exact conditions they need to grow fast, yield well, and produce quality results. The gardeners who understand this don't wait for next spring. They act now. They press seeds into warm soil right now. And they harvest while everyone else is planning. You now have 15 specific crops, the science behind why June works, the succession sowing strategy to multiply your yields, and the zone-specific knowledge to apply all of this to your exact location. That is a complete roadmap for one of the most productive growing windows of the entire year. But here's what I want to leave you with. Information without action is just entertainment. So this week, pick even just 3 or 4 crops from this list, get your seeds or your transplants, and get them in the ground. You don't need a perfect garden. You don't need to do all 15 at once. You just need to start. And if you found this video genuinely useful, and I truly believe you did, then I want to ask you something honestly. There are gardeners right now who haven't found this channel yet. Gardeners who are going to spend the rest of June doing nothing, because nobody told them this window exists. When you share this video, you're not just helping a stranger. You're handing someone their harvest back. So please like this video, share it with a fellow gardener, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the moment. Every single week on Evergreen Garden Life, we bring you the kind of gardening knowledge that actually moves the needle. The research, the strategies, the timing, and the truth that most channels simply don't dig deep enough to find. You've already seen what we do here. Don't let the next video be one you miss. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and we will see you in the next one.